Welcome back to Money Talks with Simone J. This week, we're going to get into the topic of budgeting. Let's talk about it. So, in my business, Simone J Financial Services, I get a lot of people who come to me for budgeting advice, right? Managing money, things of that sort, like a lot of people. Um, this week, I want to do a video on my 4 steps of creating a budget and getting your money organized. And so I noticed that in the world today, that's one of the biggest things that we as people struggle with the most, being organized in our finances and creating a budget. So there are actually a lot of studies that there are quite a few people who struggle with managing a budget, with saving money, paying down debt. And I completely understand where those people are because I myself am on my own journey of becoming debt free. Not too far away from it, depending on how fast I pay the debt off. But I know what it's like to struggle with making a budget, um, or to have to learn how to create a budget and get your finances in order. So this video, I want to talk about my 4 steps to making a budget. I've been budgeting for a really long time. Well, I've been writing, I've been strategically budgeting for a long time. As long as I can remember from the time I got my first job, which was at Taco Bell, I've always written down where I wanted my money to come from, or where I wanted what was coming out of my paycheck, I should say. So I don't know why, but it was always a thing for me to just know, okay, this is how much I have coming in this week, and this is what's going out. So I was 16 when I first started working at Taco Bell, and I started doing that. And it just became a thing for me. Every time I would get paid, no matter what job I was on, I would always do it. Now, what I will say is that I wasn't budgeting strategically. I was just kind of, okay, this is how much I'm getting paid. This is what I need to do. This is what I have left. And that was pretty much it. And for a lot of people, that's okay. Especially if you have more than enough money coming in. That's kind of like, it's kind of like you're using like the 50-30-20 budget or the 70-10-10-10 budget or whatever percentage budget you may use for your income, to where you're not having to account for every single dollar. But I choose to use the zero-based budgeting method, which helps me be more intentional about where my money is going and what I'm spending it on. So when I sit down with clients and I talk to them about creating a budget, I'm going to give my 4 steps on what I do with them. And hopefully this video helps you. So step 1, you want to take a chance or take the time to sit down and map out your goals. And when I say map out your goals, I don't just mean writing very vague things, right? So when I sit down and I talk to people and I say, well, let's talk about your financial goals. What type of financial goals do you have? So not any goals that you want to do, but any goals that impact your finances directly. So those goals can be anywhere from putting money into an emergency fund, increasing your emergency fund, starting an investment account, opening an IRA account, starting, retirement savings. It can be wanting to go on a vacation, pay off debt, anything of that sort can be a financial goal. But it also doesn't have to be big financial goals. It can be small financial goals as well. So you may have a goal of maybe this year you want to put money aside for Christmas. Maybe this year you said, I want to be more generous. So all of my friends and family's birthdays, I want to have money to buy them something for their birthday, right? And so that's a financial goal. So you have to sit down and you have to map that out. Now, I know there are a lot of people who may watch this video and say, I make more than enough money, I don't have to do this. But in reality, we all should have a budget, no matter how much money we make. Because even if you make a lot of money, when you spend it, you're most likely going to spend a lot too. And so your budgeting with a large income may not be a small budget. it'll be a bigger budget than normal because you spend more money. Either way, you still need a budget. So you want to sit down, you want to map out your goals. You want to ask yourself, for instance, if I want to build an emergency fund, how much money do I need in my emergency fund? So the average American should have at least 3 to 6 months of your net pay in your account. And so however much that is, that's how much you need just sitting in your emergency fund, not touching it, not doing anything with it unless something catastrophic happens and you need to go into the account to get the money. But that's how much money you want to have in your emergency fund. And so maybe that's one of your goals. Maybe you're not good at saving and you want to actually break the mold on that and you want to start putting money aside for your emergency fund. You are going to sit down and map that out in detail. So let's say you need to cover your expenses for 3 to 6 months, and this means or not to cover your expenses, but your net pay for 3 to 6 months. Let's say you need $20,000 in your emergency fund. How by what time frame do you want to have that $20,000 saved? Do you want to have it within the next year? Do you want to have it within the next 2 years? You also don't want to wait too long to get this money in the account because there's probably going to be a time where you need to go into the account to get the money. And you don't want to be in the process of saving up the money and then have to go in there and pull money out. It can happen and it may not happen. But I would say don't make the time frame to meet this goal too long. Also, take this goal, take it in steps. So $20,000, you may say you want $20,000 in your account, but also be realistic. Is that how much you need? And if it is how much you need, are you actually able to save that in a decent amount of time? You may not be able to save that much money in 2 years. You may not be able to save it in 1 year. And so maybe you start out with $10,000 and you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to give myself a year and 6 months to save $10,000. Or maybe you give yourself a year to save $10,000. There are plenty of ways to be able to do that. It's just going to take a lot of strategy and sacrifice on your part. But let's say you want to save $10,000 in the next year. You're going to divide that amount up in weeks, months, however would work best for you. And that's the amount that needs to be added into your budget to save for that goal. And that goes for any goal that you may have. Vacation, maybe you want to take a vacation in the next 3 months. Sit down and map it out. How much are you going to need for this vacation? How much is the vacation going to cost you? And make sure that's not vague as well. The vacation that you may want to go on, there are many costs for vacation, not just the cost of the hotel or the room or the flight. There are many costs to a vacation. If you're a woman, you may want to get a wax and get your nails done and get your hair done. If you're a man, you may want to get a haircut. You want to go buy clothes, you want to buy shoes, you want to do all these different things. All of that is included in the cost of vacation. So when you say one of my financial goals within the next year is to take this vacation, sit down and map that out. And then once you get that number, that needs to be included in your budget for however many months you plan to save for it so that you can make sure you meet that goal. The next step that I always tell clients is to analyze your debt. A lot of people in America have a lot of debt, and everybody doesn't want to be debt free. And I understand that. If that's your case, then maybe you're watching this video. You don't have to take everything that I say and apply it to your life. But on this channel, my journey is to be debt free. I'm going to talk to others about being debt free. That's the journey that we're going to all be on together. If that's not the journey you're on, you can take whatever you can take from this and you can apply it to your life. But I always tell clients to analyze the debt that they have. So when you're analyzing your debts, you're going to have to make some pretty emotional moves, right? So when I first started the process of analyzing my debt, I told myself, Simone, you're going to have to go on annualcreditreport.com, because If you didn't keep up with your debt over the years, you probably don't know everything that's hitting your credit report. And so you have to go wherever you can see that amount. Um, a lot of people will say Credit Karma. Credit Karma doesn't always give exactly what it's supposed to give you. And so I always tell people to go on annualcreditreport.com. When you go on there, you're going to write down every single debt that you have. Now, there are two types of ways to do this. You have the avalanche method and you have the snowball method. So the avalanche method is when you take the debt with the largest interest and then you attack that first and you go down from there. The snowball effect is the complete opposite. You take the debt with the smallest amount and then you keep going up until you get to the biggest one. And it's the picture of a snowball getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you start with the smallest debt, maybe it's $500. You take whatever money you have to pay off that debt as fast as you can. If you're going to pay over the minimum balance, but you're going to pay on it as much as you can to get it paid off as fast as you can. And what you're going to do is you're going to knock that debt out as quick as you can. After you're done, maybe your next debt costs $1,000. That's the next smallest debt. You're going to take the amount that you were paying on that smallest debt, apply it to the next smallest debt, and you're going to pay that off as fast as you can, and so on and so on. And while you're paying down your debts, you're not just paying down the smallest debt. You want to try to keep all of your debts in good standing because maybe there's something that you may have to do, like refinance something or get a debt consolidation. A lot of times when we have a lot of debt built up and we're trying to pay it off or we need help paying it off, if your credit score is not where it's supposed to be, it doesn't matter that you already have things that you're paying on or things that you've applied for before. Your debt to income ratio will be heavily impacted by whatever standing your current debts are in. So you want to keep your current debts in good standing just in case you need a little bit of help from the banks to refinance or consolidate the loans or whatever the case may be to help you kind of start getting that paid off a little bit faster. So you want to at least be paying the minimum payments on all of your debts until you get to that debt to start paying it off. When you're writing down your debts, you don't want to just write them down in any old order. Like I said, you want to start at the smallest, work your way up from there. When you write down all of your debts, you also want to know, how much do I have left to pay on this debt in total? How much is the interest rate? Because on a lot of the debts that you're paying on, if you're just paying the minimum balance, you have some interest accruing. And that will let you know how much, once you get to that debt, you'll have left to pay off once you're ready to pay it off. You want to know how much the interest rate is, the total balance, who the creditor is. This is information that you want to gather so that you have your debt analysis organized. And as you're doing this, you just want to make sure you're being very strategic with it. Don't take, a whole lot of time doing this. If you know that you are making room, this might require you to look for ways to increase your income. You may not be able to pay off your debt. Maybe you do your budget and you realize you're actually in the red. That means you're gonna have to shave down some things in your budget to make some room to start paying off debt. The more debt you have, the lower your net worth is, the less money you have, the less margin you have in your budget. The point of paying off debt is to have more margin in your budget. Every time you get money from your employer or your business and you have to make debt payments, you're leaking cash out of your accounts. That's money that you can be paying yourself. That's money that you can be saving. That's money that you can be investing. But if you're paying a bank or a creditor, you're not doing anything but making them rich and you're leaking cash out of your account that you could be keeping in your own pockets. The third step is going to be to create your categories for your budget. So, of course, when you create your budget, you're going to have a category for each item that you're paying out every single month. What I do is when I create my budget, I have categories and I have subcategories. To create your categories, what you're going to do is you're going to gather up 3 months of your statements, of your bank statements. If maybe you have multiple banks that you spend money with, I recommend getting the statements for all of the accounts so that you can get a clear eye view on what's really coming out of your accounts. What are you really paying for every single month or every year or whatever the case may be? When you get your statements, you want to get either a pen or you can get some highlighters, however you want to do this process. But you want to get something to go through your statements line by line and mark whatever that line is. So maybe you're going through your statements and you're looking at them and you have some items that are from restaurants. That would be categorized as dining. You have some items that you went and grocery shopping at Walmart or Target or Whole Foods. That will be categorized as groceries. Those are the subcategories that I use. For the main category, I use food. So if I'm going through my statements and I am marking off whatever I see, I'm going to categorize groceries and I'm going to categorize dining and I'm going to put that under my food category. And I'll do that for every single line that's on my statement, and that will help me figure out what categories I have that I'm paying out every single month. And so that's what you want to do, is how you want to create your categories. So you go through your statements for the last 3 months. Whenever you see gas purchases, you can highlight that whatever color you want to do under transportation. Maybe you want blue as transportation. Highlight every gas purchase blue. Highlight your car insurance blue. Highlight your car maintenance blue. And then when you get ready to create your budget, that's going to go under your transportation. And so that's how you're going to gather the categories for your budget. And then after you're done with that, you want to take some time with that though. Don't rush it. Sit down. You may not get it all done in one day. Maybe you need a week or two, but you don't want to rush it. You want to make sure that you're going through line by line, really looking at what is coming out of your account. After you're done with gathering those categories, the next thing I want you to do with that is you're going to add up the amounts in each category. So let's say the last 3 months you look over for your food category, you spent $1,000 in groceries and you spent 800 in dining. That's going to tell you how much how much you've averaged over the last 3 months within your budget for that category. So you're going to take those numbers, you're going to divide them by 3. That's the average that you spent within the last 3 months. So when you're creating your budget, you'll know what's realistic for your household, what's realistic for you. Sometimes you can bring those numbers down, but you don't want to be unrealistic, which is why you want to take that step. In step 3, you want to make sure you calculate those categories, divide them by 3, and that's going to tell you what you realistically spend on average every single month in that category. So the next thing you want to do is just the fourth and last step is to go ahead and start creating your budget. This is where you really start to get everything organized. So now at this point, you have everything organized, everything is gathered. You have your goals. You know you want to take a vacation in the next 3 months. You know it's going to cost you $5,000. You know that to take that vacation within the next 3 months, 5,000 times 3, that's the amount that's going to have to go into your budget to be able to take that vacation without stress, strain, or struggle. Maybe you have $5,000 to just go ahead and take the vacation, and that's good. But if you're trying to get your money organized and you're trying to be more strategic with how you spend your money, you want to start planning for these things, not just spending the money. So you take that number, you include in your budget for every single month that you're creating a budget for. Then you also have your debts. You know that you know the minimum payments that you're going to have to start taking out of your bank account to keep your debts in good standing. You know that the smallest debt that you have is $500, and you say you can get that paid off within the next 2 months. You're going to have to make sure that in your budget for the next 2 months you are budgeting $250 to make sure that you reach the goal of paying that debt off within the next 2 months. along with your other debts that you have the minimum payments for. So this is all the information that you have gathered. Now it's time to sit down and write it all down and map it all out. Keep in mind that budgeting is a roadmap. This budget is going to be a roadmap. It's not going to stay the same forever. It's going to shift and change with your life. You're going to tweak it as you go along. You're going to learn some things. Statistics say that it takes 3 months to really learn how to stick to a budget. So if the first month it doesn't work, don't beat yourself up. It takes time to actually stick with it. I still go over my budget sometimes. Sometimes I forget to put stuff in my budget. It happens. All you do is you take what you've learned. The budget is there to tell you what you're doing and tell you what you can do better next month so that you stick to your goals and don't spend too much money to where you're not being able to save, you're not being able to be generous, and you're not being able to pay off debt. So, when you're creating your budget, you want to start first things first, knowing what your income is. I've talked to many people, especially working at a bank, where they come in for a loan, they can't tell you how much they get paid. They have to look it up, they have to calculate it, they have to call their boss. You have to know your numbers, especially when you're trying to be more organized in your budgeting and your um, organization of your money. If you don't know your numbers, you're always going to be all over the place. And then you'll also always be spending whatever you want to spend, not realizing you're going over the amount that you actually get paid every single month. So when you're creating your budget, you want to start with what you get paid. What I do when I create my budget is I write down every single source of income that I have. So however many times I might get paid from my job, I'll write that down. Income one, income two, income three. If I have business income, I'll write down my business income. Whatever extra income, like interest or little things like that, will go under extra income. Whatever income you have. I even have an income category for my credit card. I don't spend a lot on my credit card. I only spend what I know I can afford to put back. However, mostly I use my credit card for gas. What I do as far as creating a income category for my credit card, I will budget the amount that I need for my gas, which will I will pay off every single month, and then that will be my income for my credit card. So let's say I don't drive around a whole lot. I spend less than $200 on gas. I'll make a budget of $150. That's going to be the amount that I want to spend on my credit card this month because that's going to be the amount that I want to pay off on my credit card. And that's how I'll do that. But that's just how I do my budget because I still use my credit card to make sure I'm keeping my credit score as high as I can. I'm not completely focused on having a super high credit score because like I said, my journey is to be debt free and I want to get to a place where I don't need a credit score. But using very small amounts on my credit card is a way that I keep my credit score at a good place. So, like I said, when starting your budget, you always want to make sure you're starting with your income. After you've written down all of your sources of income, you want to guesstimate how much you think you're going to get paid in each of those sources for this month. So maybe you get paid an average of $2,000 every time you get paid. If you get paid 3 times that month, you're going to write 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. If you have business income, maybe you plan on your business making you about another $1,200. Business income, you're going to put $1,200. After you do that, you're going to add up all of the income amounts. That's going to be what you plan to bring into your household at the end of the month. After you have that number, now you're ready to start writing down all of your categories and subcategories because now you know how much you have left to spend, how much you have to spend for that month, and you want to make sure that every dollar is accounted for. So this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to do zero-based budgeting since that's what I do. Like I said, there are different budget methods that you can use, like the 50-30-20 or the 70-10-10-10, and you can always research those methods and see if they work better for you. I'd like to be more accountable for every dollar that comes into my account. So I use the zero-based budgeting. That has worked for me over the years that I've been budgeting. And so that's what I teach. So the next thing you want to do after you have your income is you want to go ahead and write down all of the categories that you gathered in step 3. Home, that's your main category. What are the subcategories of home? Do you have a mortgage or rent? Do you have maintenance that you pay out on the regular basis? Do you have a gas stove? Maybe you pay a gas bill for your stove every single month. Those are the type of things that are going to go under your home category. You have a car, transportation. Transportation is going to be the main category. The subcategories of that main category is going to be things like car payment or um, a car payment. Maybe you don't have a car payment, which is really great. You don't have all that consumer debt, but you have gas, you have car maintenance, maybe getting your car washed, even if it's not an oil change every single month, getting your car washed, things of that sort, car insurance. All of those things are going to be subcategories under transportation, and so on and so on. You may have medical, you have utilities, electricity, cable, Wi-Fi, things of that sort. But when you're writing the categories for your budget, I always tell my clients you don't want to leave anything out. You want to make sure that every dollar is accounted for. So you cannot miss anything um, that you have coming out of your account, which is the reason why you took that step in step 3 to go through your statements. Because your statements are going to tell you what you actually pay out on the regular every single month. And so if you're not looking at that, you're probably going to miss something. So you don't want to forget things that a lot of people usually forget, which are things like maybe clothing that you have to buy, miscellaneous categories that may just pop up out of nowhere. Maybe you like to have fun and go out. Maybe you have events that you go to. You have investments that you make in your business, or you may invest in education. But even things like buying clothing or subscriptions, a lot of people spend a lot of money on subscriptions, including subscriptions that they don't even know that they have. They're not even using them. Gym memberships, all of these things are going to be listed within your statements, and it's going to tell you this is what's coming out of your account. So when you make your budget, you're not only able to see what you're actually paying for, but you can also make a plan of what can I cut down, what can I reconsider that maybe I don't need to be paying for it anymore. And that's what having a zero-based budget is going to do for you. It's also going to help you see what's not worth you spending money on anymore. Because if you get to your budget, when you create a zero-based budget, it is income minus expenses equals 0. That doesn't mean that you don't have money left. That means that you've acquired an assignment for every single dollar that you have coming in to your account. So that means not just your bills are getting paid, but whatever money you have left over, whether it's 500, whether it's 5,000, you're going to assign that money somewhere. So maybe you put a lot of that money into your savings account. Maybe you decide that you do want to take a vacation, or you want to take a mini weekend vacation. Maybe you budget something for that mini weekend vacation. Whatever it is, that extra money should be accounted for to make sure that it's going somewhere that you want it to go. What happens is if you don't make that plan, let's say you pay all of your bills are paid, and you have an extra $500 for the month. If you don't make a plan for that $500 to be very strategic, whether it's um, putting money aside for whatever it is, clothing, doing something for your kids, buying someone a gift, you're going to make decisions with that money that you may not later on you may have wished you hadn't made. The saying always goes, if you don't have a plan for your money, somebody else will. So if you don't make a plan for the money, you'll most likely end up spending it on something that you really didn't need to spend it on. And then when you need something later, you'll probably look back and say, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have purchased this, or I wish I wouldn't have done that. but that's only because you didn't have a plan for it. Maybe you put money aside in the miscellaneous category. Miscellaneous category are for those things that may pop up out of nowhere. Maybe you don't necessarily have a plan for all of the money, and maybe you have about $200 left. So you created a plan for every other dollar, but about $200. You can put that in the miscellaneous category because if you're living life, something is going to come up, and you want to have something in that category to where you know you're not going into the money for anything else that you have set aside, bills, paying down debt, savings, buying you clothes, or whatever the case may be. But you have this $200 that's in this miscellaneous category where if something comes up, if you get a flat tire or something of that sort, you have that money there. You also can put that money into a sinking fund account for things of that nature, for car repairs that may come up out of nowhere. I know for me, I have different savings accounts. Let's talk about savings accounts. A savings account is basically you paying yourself. The one thing I always tell people, especially if they're believers, the first thing on your budget should be tithe and giving. So for me, whenever I get paid, the first thing that comes out of my income is going to be money going to my local church. That's going to be my tithe, maybe it'll be an offering, whatever the case may be. The next thing I'm going to do before I pay any bills, I'm going to budget for saving. Why? Because I don't want my creditors, I don't want my mortgage company, I don't want the car company, I don't want everybody getting money before I do. Now, if you're going by the Dave Ramsey plan, you have about $1,000 in a savings account while you work on paying off debt. That's an option for you as well. That's money that you don't touch at all unless there's an actual emergency. But if you're not in that, that phase, or if that's not something that you're doing and you just want to make sure that you're saving money is like you paying yourself. So I always say, make sure you budget for saving second before you start paying any bills. Now, if you get to the end of your budget and you realize that you have to take a little bit from your savings to make sure you stay in the green, then you have to adjust some things. Maybe you have to adjust your savings. But you want to be putting at least 10% into your savings every single month of what you're getting paid. Now, you don't want to cut out savings altogether. You don't want to cut out giving altogether. You don't want to cut out giving at all. So if you've taken care of everything, you've done your budget, you've done your giving, you've done your saving, then you go through your debts because that's the next most important thing. You want to make sure that you're paying off your debt, and then you paid off your bills, and you get to the end of your budget and it's not at zero, it's negative. That means that two things has to happen. You either have to shave something else off, adjust the numbers, or you have to figure out a way to make more income. And that's what we should be doing anyway, because in this economy, we have to make more money. So if you get to the end of your budget and you're at a negative, those are the only two things that you really can think of that you can do. And in a lot of cases, you've cut down everything that you can. So what we should be doing anyway is figuring out ways to bring in more income, whether that's a side business, whatever the case may be, whatever you find with your hands to do to create more income so that you can throw it at the debt, so that you can save up more money, so that you can start investing and building a legacy for your family and your children. That's what we have to do. And so those are really the only two choices that you have left. The last thing you want to do is stay in the negative. You want to get out of this habit of living paycheck to paycheck. The next month comes, you have the same bills that you had last month. They still have to be paid next month, but you're pulling money from other places to pay that bill. That doesn't really make sense because you still have to pay the bill again next month. So if you didn't have it last month, you're also not going to have it this month. And so you have to figure out ways to start increasing your income and getting more income coming in so that you can get out of the red and get caught up. At least, I would say, at least focus on breaking even. At least focus on breaking even until you can get to a place where you are above and beyond. It can be very difficult. It's easier said than done to figure out ways to start making more money. starting your own business. A lot of people will say to start your business. And for a lot of people, that works out very well for them. And others, you have to work a little bit harder. But you have to do something. Whether it's getting a second job, whether it's whatever way that you find, well, I don't want to say whatever way you find to make extra income, whatever legal way and moral way you find to make extra income, that's what you want to do. Figure out what it is that you want to do to bring in that extra income to start making sure that your budget stays within the green. Um, Other methods I wanted to talk about were, where do you keep your emergency fund? If you have an emergency fund or you plan on saving an emergency fund, where do you keep your emergency fund? The best thing to do with your emergency fund is to keep it in a more distant account. That's what I always say. So for my emergency fund, I have it in a high yield savings account in the bank. It's called Bask Bank. I keep it there because that is the account that it's a lot easier for me not to touch my money when it's there. So I have about 5 banks that I use, online banks that I use because of the interest. I use Ally account for most of my savings accounts, and then I use Bass Bank for my emergency savings. With Bass Bank, it takes a little longer to get your money, so I'm less prone to pull the money out of that account than I am out of my Ally account. With my Ally account, I have my children's savings, and I have my short-term savings and my sinking fund savings. And so I keep them with that account because that's one that I usually will try to get to the fastest. But with my emergency fund, keeping it in an account where it takes a little bit longer to get it in case I need it works out a little bit better. Now they also have the opportunity for you to use checking accounts. I don't have a checking account with them, but it still works out for me because I keep money in different places. So if I can't pull it from there in time, maybe I do have an emergency that I need to fix right away. I'll either use my credit card or I'll pull money out of my Ally account and then I'll move it from my Bass Bank account back into that account to cover the funds that I pulled out. But being able to keep money or retain money for a longer period of time has a huge where you keep your money has a huge impact on how long you're able to retain funds. If you're always keeping your money in one account or one bank and it's always connected to the account that you spend money out of, if you don't have that discipline, you're always going to be spending money out of that account and you're never going to be able to retain it long. Having a different account for different things like bills, having a separate account for a business account, having a separate account for savings, whatever different types of savings that you have, separating your accounts. And I would go as far as having them separated into different banks is what's going to help you to keep those things organized and to be able to retain funds in them a whole lot longer. So that's all I have for you for this video. This was actually my second time recording this video. But I hope this helped you, and I hope that something stuck out to you. Maybe you are already budgeting and you're already using these steps. Um, I'm happy for you because you could probably teach me something. You can teach the people who are watching this video something. But if you're watching this video and you say, I need to use these steps. I need to get my finances in order. I need to get my finances organized. Drop in the comments that something in this video helped you so that I know that I'm making an impact on someone. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anyone you know.